Welcome back to Money Talks with Dad. Hi, Dad.
Hey, daughter.
We're talking about housing today.
We are.
Finally.
Yeah,
This is why we wanted to do the podcast.
it is. And then, so one reason I wanted to talk about it is I got a question for you.
Okay.
What do you think is the average age of the first-time home buyer?
First-time home buyer. I don't know, like mid to late 20s.
Used to be.
So I'm right.
Yeah. So you're, thankfully, because you guys followed all the advice of episodes 1 through 7.
You guys as in me?
You and your husband.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly
him.
your husband.
Mostly him, let's be real.
And your sister.
Yeah.
Like, you guys were a little bit early, but it's 38 now.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? You think of a 38-year-old and they're just...
Can't even imagine, Dad. I'm so young.
They're just now buying their first house.
Wow. That is interesting. I feel like so it used to be mid-20s.
It used to be back...
How long ago?
In the early 2000s, it was still the mid-20s.
Okay.
But by 2021, it was all the way... It was at 33.
Wow.
And then it jumped 3 years to 2022 to 36, and now it's 38.
Dang. Wow.
And like we were saying, the way things are going, it might be 45 next year.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Why is the age getting higher? Why are
Really
people
costs. So do you remember from statistics or math class what median
The answer
means?
is no. Oh, but that actually, yes.
You do you know
I was like,
median?
first, never took statistics. Second, math class was boring.
Okay, so
yeah, median. Yeah, that one I do know.
All right. So you have average,
Yes.
which can be skewed because you might have some $1 million houses and some $100,000 houses.
Yeah.
So median is if they counted all the houses and lined them all up and said the exact middle is there.
Yeah.
So the median home price, remember, you probably don't remember because you were a child.
Yeah.
We had the housing bubble where everybody's like, oh my gosh, houses are going crazy.
Yeah.
Like prices are ridiculous.
Yeah.
So before the market crashed, the median price in the U.S. was $257,000 for a house. Like
Dude,
the exact middle.
That's crazy cheap.
Right?
That's crazy cheap.
Which back then, your mom and I bought our first house for $203,000 in 2003.
Was it really?
But by
Dang.
2007, it had gone up to, I think our house was above the median by then because we were in Arizona. It was worth like $325,000
Wow.
in like 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, it crashed.
Oh, right.
But now the median price is all the way up to $419,000.
That's insane.
Yeah. So the median, meaning
So,
like the exact middle.
Like the actual, yeah. Wow.
And just before COVID, it was $329,000.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking $100,000 increase in 5 years.
In 5 years.
So that's one reason you've seen people not be able to afford it is
No, yeah.
the prices have gone up so much.
Yeah.
So
and
as
weirdly,
you
we're
guys,
not getting paid more.
right. And you guys are learning because you bought your house in
2018, 19?
18 or 19?
18 or 19, I think.
19, I think.
I don't know.
So we bought ours in Virginia in 2018.
Oh, okay. And yeah, we were about a year behind you
Yeah.
guys. Yeah. Yeah. So we bought our house then. And can I tell you the story
Go
of
for
like
it.
our housing
Yeah.
thing? So we lived in only apartments for the longest time, which was perfect because we'd get bored. We'd find a new, or, Dustin would make more money and we'd
Upgrade.
right? Go to a slightly safer part of Tucson.
Yeah.
And so when we moved here, we were like, okay, we're here now. We're not wanting to really be moving around at all. And so we were ready to start looking for like a house. And then Dustin found us this cute house that it's not necessarily a new house. It's not necessarily the fanciest house, but it is cute. It's very unique, which we liked.
Which
it
was
has
Dustin's
like
criteria.
It was. He said no cookie cutter homes. And I said, what if we did?
Which
have
was
that?
funny because us from Tucson, the Adobe,
Yeah.
different shades of brown,
Yeah. Lots of brown.
like that was every house in Tucson.
Yeah.
And so we moved here we're like, oh my gosh, look at all these cool colonial houses.
Right, yeah.
Like they all have different peaks and they have multiple colors.
Yeah.
And to us, we're like, this is great.
This is unique. Yeah, it was, or maybe not unique, but maybe not unique, but different from what
Different
we were
for
so used
us.
to. Yeah.
And
yeah.
enough variety where your husband saw it as,
Yeah.
oh, everything looks the same.
Everything's the same. Yeah.
I want unique.
Yes. And so we got a brown house. It's got the cedar siding, which we do like, you know.
You thought.
So we thought we would like it. It turns out that requires more maintenance, apparently. Real wood can rot, evidently.
Especially when there's so much moisture.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know. It came with its own little problems, but it was very much so. It was like, no, it'll be worth it, though.
Mhm.
And so we bought the house. Now I'm like, was it worth it, in fact? There's so much of the house needs to be kind of like maintained a little bit more
Yeah.
than I guess like any other type of house. Maybe not any other type of house, but you know what I mean. So,
Plus, when you bought it, you had a
oh yeah.
4-year-old.
2018 we said?
Oh, right. So
Oh, 1-year-old? 2-year-old?
2-year-old.
No,
She was
2-year-old.
2.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
'Cause
no
of-
other children.
Yeah. Just the one.
And then last summer, you're up to a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And Dustin works from home sometimes. He plays music.
Yeah.
You
We're
have
just-
a 3 and a 6-year-old.
Uh-huh. And we're just finding now that like the house that we have is not very conducive to our lifestyle anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We also have the dog and the cats and everything, and so it's just
And your unique house has 2 flights of stairs to get in the front door.
it is. There's a lot of stairs on our house. There is actually no way to get inside the house without going up at least 1 flight of stairs.
Yeah. And Dustin's learned what leaves are,
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, we were
living
on like
in
an
the
acre and
woods,
it's so much
which was a dream of his.
Yes. And mine.
Right.
And it's so pretty to look at from inside the house, to be clear. Like, we've got all of our windows and everything, but then you step outside and you're like, mosquitoes everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And
Carpenter
ticks.
bees and ticks and everything. And so,
And Dustin has,
so much yard work to do, but only 70% of the year.
Yeah.
So it's not bad during the winter.
so then last summer you guys were like,
Yeah, we're like, okay, we're not going to stay here. This wasn't, we never thought that it would be our forever home, but we're like, okay, we're getting to the point now where it's been a couple of years. We're ready to start looking at moving. And so we reached out to our realtor basically just to be like, what needs to happen for us to move?
Mhm.
Obviously, we can't just sell the house as is. She could use some work. When we bought the house too, there were some things where like, our realtor was like, hey, doesn't have to happen now. You're good for a couple of years, but like you need to get the roof
right.
redone. I don't know
Yeah.
housing, but like new roof, please.
Mhm.
The siding were there. She was like, there's a couple boards that need to be replaced. More now, because we didn't,
Yeah.
and also just as
It
time
needs
goes
stained or painted. And,
on. Yes,
yeah.
restained, some replaced,
The deck
things
needs
like that.
redone.
Deck needs to be redone. Girl, I came out there this morning. There's a hole in our deck now. I said,
Yeah.
sure, that tracks. Why not? Why not a hole in our deck?
And the place your kids like to play.
It is, yeah. Anyway, so it's just kind of like those types of things. So we had her. She's great. If there's one thing I think I would say is in terms of housing, is find a good realtor.
Oh, good. So we're almost done because that's like 0.7 on the outline.
Is it? I'm
It
glad
is.
I'm paying attention to what we're talking about.
Back to your story.
Okay, so I had my realtor come over to
Mhm.
show me what needs to be fixed up to the house, and she told us they were all things that we already knew, but she kind of was just like, for sure these things, and we were like, okay. I don't remember where else I was going with that story, Dad. I'm not gonna lie. I got distracted by jumping ahead on the.
Yeah. So to catch everybody up,
Yeah.
as you might expect if you've been following along with our podcasts, last summer on our family vacation when you guys had just gone through all that.
Yes. Yeah.
And you'd met with the realtor and you
Yeah.
and Dustin were having all these long conversations.
Oh yeah.
Dustin was
Oh, I remember this now. Yeah.
I
Thank
don't
you.
he was not with us. You were just with
We were just talking.
me, you and your mom.
Hmm.
And you were like,
I said, Dad, this man keeps talking to me like I'm a realtor,
like I'm a housing mogul.
like I'm a housing mogul, and here I am not.
And you're just
Um,
going, uh-huh.
I said, yes, my love. Those things that you're saying, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, and I know what they all are. What does the word?
Yep.
So let's go. Can we go over some vocabulary words for
Yeah.
all the Corinnes at home?
Well, right. And so just to finish your part of the story, you
The
said
ADHD is winning today. Sorry.
yes, that's all right. You said explain this to me like I'm a third grader,
Like I'm a third grader.
which
Yes.
is our joke because we love The Office.
Love The Office.
And you started having these terms.
Yeah.
And then your mom said, you guys should do like
That's
something.
right. We were just sitting in the RV and I was
Yeah.
like, no, Dad, now tell me about this.
Mhm.
Okay, now tell me about this. And she's like, you guys need to record this. This
Yeah.
is so funny.
And
And
then
we're
we're
like, Dad, let's record
yeah.
this.
And so we get back and we're like, guys, we're launching a podcast.
Yeah.
So that was last summer.
Yeah.
It might have taken, I don't know when we posted the first one, but keep in mind,
Yeah, but
we're on episode 8 and we're finally to the whole reason we wanted to do a podcast.
yep.
So fingers crossed,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about housing and
Yes.
finish housing today
We're going to finish it.
and keep doing financial literacy. So
Yeah.
the words you were asking me,
Yes.
you wrote down.
I did. And you've now explained them to me multiple times. One day I will retain that information.
Mhm.
Maybe today's the day.
Yep.
So let's start basic, okay?
Okay.
Mortgage. I'm pretty sure the way my brain's remembered it is mortgage is just fancy rent.
Fancy rent is a very good way to think about it.
I knew it.
Our favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life.
Love.
And I think they explain, I use that example all the time for lots of complicated things. But essentially, you are, when you get a mortgage, you're buying the house back from the bank. Because the way it works is what we just say, $419,000
Okay.
is the median home price.
Okay.
I
Right.
don't know about you, but I don't have $419,000 laying around.
Not today. No.
So essentially, the bank says, we will help you buy this.
Okay.
The mortgage is kind of an agreement that says, if you don't pay us back, we take your house. So you're essentially paying fancy rent
Fancy rent.
to the bank. They're charging you interest because they are taking the risk to give you money and they need to get paid somehow for it.
Yeah.
But you're slowly chipping away at buying the house back from the bank via your mortgage.
Okay.
And so most mortgages are 30 years. And so over 30 years, they kind of do the math and it comes out that in the beginning, you're paying a lot of interest and you're barely buying any of it.
Mm-hmm.
But as you keep paying, you're buying more and more of that house.
Okay.
So fancy rent,
Okay.
you're basically buying. I think of it as you're buying back the house from the bank who owns it right now.
Okay. That makes sense. Equity.
Perfect. So equity. So you know how I just mentioned that in the beginning, you're barely paying anything. You're paying basically interest. But as the
Yes.
mortgage gets older, you're paying more and more.
Yeah.
So let's say we'll go back $419,000 house.
Okay.
Let's say you borrowed $400,000
Mm-hmm.
and 10 years later, the house is worth $500,000 and your mortgage is $300,000 now because you've been paying the bank.
Paying it. Yeah.
500 minus 300 is 200.
Math.
That's called your equity. It's the
Oh,
difference
okay.
between what your house is worth and what you owe the
Mm.
bank. Because theoretically, like we all pop on Zillow, we go on vacation and we're like, what is
Love.
this house worth?
I love to do that. Yeah.
And which is kind of a way to look at this is basically what your house is worth.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to get into like how they do it, but it's a close
Yeah.
estimate
Okay.
of what homes have sold for similar to your house
Okay.
using a computer algorithm. Obviously, Zillow can't go
Technology.
inside and be like, wow, they need new carpets and they need new floors. But they assume, okay, the house is 25 years old. It's probably needing some work. So here's the value.
Do they see like children live there, so it's a hot mess inside? No.
No, they don't. But essentially, your equity is whatever the house is worth, in this case, maybe Zillow,
Mm-hmm.
minus when you look at your mortgage statement, what you owe, that's your equity because you could sell the house
Mm.
and you sell the house, you pay the bank back the $300,000.
And then I have
You have
left.
$200,000 to
Okay.
use to buy a bigger house, a different house.
Yeah.
Or if you're older and maybe you're going to go rent
Hmm.
instead of own,
Yeah.
you'd have that $200,000 to go into your bank to help pay the rent, going
okay.
forward. Like
Yeah.
people, you hear it downsizing.
Yeah. Yes.
Like Dustin's grandpa.
Yep.
Sell the house. He's going to take his equity
Yep.
and use that for the assisted living facility.
That would totally make sense.
Because, in fact, I don't even think he has a mortgage. He was very frugal
Yeah, he was.
So all of that is equity because he
Okay.
has zero mortgage.
Yeah.
But for most people, they have some mortgage, and the difference between after you pay the bank back, what do you have left is your equity.
Gotcha. Okay. So that equity is kind of pretend money. It's hypothetical money
Right.
in a sense, right?
You couldn't like be like, hey, I would like $10 out of my equity today.
So that's what I was gonna ask. I was like, it's not real money that you have access to. It's money that you would have if you do these things.
Correct.
Okay. Man, I'm figuring it out, Dad.
You're getting there.
It is slowly getting in there. I just saw the next one and I'm ready. I'm bracing myself.
Mhm.
Okay, interest. We just talked about this last episode.
Right.
Yeah.
7.
But this is different interest,
It is different interest.
which is just so fun. Why would we have a different word for it? Let's
So,
go. I'm ready.
It's interest is interest. Interest is just basically a percentage that you either pay or receive
Okay.
for lending or borrowing money.
Okay.
But what we talked about last episode was when we hear interest rates, it's usually the Federal Reserve is going to lower interest rates.
Right.
Or just before we recorded this, we heard yesterday the Federal Reserve chose to not change interest rates.
Okay. Love that.
What we talked about last time is that's the money banks charge each other to lend,
Right.
not what the bank decides to charge you. That's a different interest rate.
Right. Okay.
The market determines what that should be based on a whole lot of economic indicators that if you like that kind of stuff, that's what my paid job is for. I have a blog to talk about that. But
Yeah.
for people buying, you just need to know just because the Federal Reserve says interest rates are going down does not mean what you pay on the mortgage is going down.
Okay.
Because there's also another thing that for most mortgages, and this is what you guys are running into, when you sign that contract for 30 years or 15 years,
Yes.
it's that interest rate today.
Yeah.
If interest rates go up, you're still locked in at the low rate.
Yeah. This is another issue that we're having. Side
Because
story.
Go for it.
This is the next side story. Is like, so we want to buy another house, right? We did the thing. What is it called again?
Refinance.
We refinanced our house.
Some person you might know said, hey, you should do this.
Yeah, some guy.
Chance of a lifetime.
Some guy who pays attention to these things was like, you guys should really do this. And so we did. And we were like, wow, some guy, great idea. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
once in a lifetime is accurate. Because now we've got this sweet, I don't know what the number is.
It's like 2.5 or 3%.
Yes. And what is the number now?
6.7
That's
as of
so
yesterday.
much more. That's such a bigger number.
It is a lot more interest.
And so while we are like, okay, we want to have a better house, one that fits our lifestyle a little bit better, we're also like, okay, it's going to be so much more expensive. Not just because better house, but because interest rate is going to be like double.
Because at the time...
And rudely, they won't let us use the same interest rate. Like, hello, we went through the effort of refinancing.
Right.
Can't we just roll over interest rate?
Yeah. And at the time, what I said was, if the bank wants to give you money at 2.5 or 3% for 30 years, you take them up on that.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that is like stealing money almost.
Right.
Like the cost of money is more than 3%.
Yeah.
And they were basically giving that. And the plan then was we're going to make this house into what we want
Right. It was. Yeah.
using, I can't see because I don't have my glasses on. I
That's
think
all
one
right.
of your other terms, maybe we'll jump, HELOC.
That's next
Oh,
on my
okay,
list.
cool.
So perfect
Segue.
segue. Thanks.
Yep. So the plan when you refinanced was
Yeah.
you would use a HELOC,
Yeah.
which is home equity line of credit,
That's right. Okay. Yes.
to do some of those things slowly. Like, oh, we need
Yeah.
a new roof, $20,000. We don't have
Yeah.
20,000 sitting in the bank.
Yeah.
But remember how you said it's pretend money, the equity.
The equity. Okay. Yeah.
You could go to the bank and say, we would like to borrow against the equity in our house. In other words, hey, bank, if we sign over more of our house, more of our equity, will you loan us money?
Oh, so we can borrow that pretend money.
You can.
What?
It's going to be a higher interest rate, but it's not like a credit card interest rate.
Oh, okay.
It might be right now 9 or 10% instead
it.
of almost 7%.
Okay.
But a credit card, I think, is like 19 or 20% right now for most people. It's
Dang.
ridiculous.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
and it's a shorter payback period, but it gives you a chance, instead of having to save $20,000 for your roof, you can say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Banker, I would like to change something in my house.
Yeah.
So the plan when you refinanced was, we'll save what we can and do what we can. If there's a really big project, like we want to remodel the kitchen or put on a new roof, we'll do a home equity line of credit, pay that back in 3 or 4 years, and then have our dream home.
Right.
But as you did the math, you were like,
we're going to have to redo all of it. Let's bulldoze it.
Yeah, because Dustin wants a flat yard.
He wants a flat yard.
No hill.
It is great for sledding, but again, that's only for like a couple months of the year.
And not every winter.
And not even every winter. There are benefits to this house. I really do. I'm like, it was a great house. And now we're done with it.
Yeah. So you're stuck with that
we're stuck
in that interest rate. And so now if you wanted to buy a new house, yes, you could sell it and get that equity.
Yeah.
But the next house, the mortgage would be at almost 7% instead of 3%.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Okay, so question, Money Man, when is the interest going to get low again? Probably not that low again, I recognize.
So I don't think we talked about it, ironically, in our interest rate.
Love that for us.
In general, the mortgage interest rates go down when the economy is weaker.
So what do we need? How do we get this economy weaker?
I hate to say this. We need a recession.
Dad's canceled. Canceled.
Because what will happen during a recession is the cost of long-term money goes down. Because one, the Federal Reserve pushed down short-term money, but the bankers are saying, basically they're trying to get money and
to get the economy going again. Okay.
And so all the interest rates come down. So historically, rates come down. So if you guys go back to when you refinanced, I believe it was 2021.
I think so, yeah.
And so remember, we had COVID. The Federal Reserve cut their interest rates to 0, the short-term interest rates. But the bond market pushed the long-term interest rates also down to like 1 or 2% because everything seized up when the economy shut down.
Yeah.
And so the cost of money was really low. And so everybody, like you guys, refinanced.
Yeah.
Well, then the economy got going too high.
Yeah, we did too good of a job.
And so we had really high inflation in 2022. So interest rates went way up, and they've kind of stayed up because the economy is still doing generally well.
Yeah. Dang it.
I know. The issue then, this is always the hard part.
Okay.
You guys have, I don't know what your house is worth, but it's gone up a lot.
Probably.
According to Zillow.
Oh, has it? Okay.
During a recession, typically housing prices drop. At the same time, interest rates drop.
Oh, that sucks. What the heck? This is so unfair.
So, yes, interest rates would go down if we had a recession, but also the equity in your house would go down.
Shoot.
But the house you're looking at buying would also go down in price.
So how about I just win the lottery, I'll buy a second house and then wait for the house's pricing to go up and then I'll sell my house.
Yes. Or something your mother would never allow us to do.
Oh, boy.
You sell your house.
Okay.
Stay with me.
Okay. I'm homeless now.
You take the RV sitting in your driveway and you just go live in different campsites for 2 to 5 years.
Feels like we're not talking about me anymore because I don't have an RV in my driveway.
And she said, no.
That's so weird. That doesn't sound like her.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I don't even know where that's at on the outline.
No,
and maybe we'll jump to like step 4.
Yeah, feels
But
right.
this is a really good point of...
Wait, I have a question before we go on further. Oh, I had a question. Oh, I do. Okay. The economy is up and down. Okay. It's cyclical? No?
Yes.
Frick, yeah. Sorry for saying frick on the podcast.
That's all right.
Courtney, edit it and post. Change it to frog, yeah.
Frog, yeah.
I don't think that's better.
No.
Moving on.
Flippin', yeah.
Flippin' feels right. It is cyclical because I know I'm not going to get into politics today. But that's like a thing, right? Where it's like, oh, this president made the economy better. This president made the economy worse. And then I always hear you saying like, no, it's literally not about this guy sitting in this chair.
Right.
It's about just it's cyclical.
Yeah. It's like $30 trillion, which is, we can't even fathom how big $30 trillion is.
Too many.
350 million Americans.
Yeah.
Really half lean one way politically, half lean the other way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't it can't change quickly.
Right.
You see the economy go up, the economy goes down.
Okay.
And this kind of does bring me back to that point of
Totally intentional.
there's a thing called utility.
That was Dad. Oh no, that wasn't on our
No,
next
it's
word.
on the outline.
But it's
I think it's like at
still
the
intentional.
end.
That's okay. Let's go. We'll squeeze it in.
And then we'll come back to the other things.
Okay. 'Cause
But
there's only one other word I want the description.
okay.
The definition.
Oh,
of.
good. We're still on the intro.
We're still on the intro.
All right. We'll come back to the intro.
I think this outline's working. We're
It's
doing an
great.
outline
I'm
today,
glad that I
guys.
spent the work on ChatGPT coming up with an outline. Anyways, utility means it's not fictitious, but it's an internal value that
Oh, yes.
only you can assign to something. So going back to your mom,
Yes.
her home, this was just the second home we purchased together in over 25 years.
Yeah.
Our first home, we thought this could be our forever home. And it
Right.
literally was close to it.
It really
As
was.
you guys always said, you can't ever sell our childhood home.
No, you're literally never allowed to.
Because there were so many memories. And we literally
Yeah.
did grow into this home.
We did.
When, oh, cool, we're having twins now. Where are we going to put them? Everybody
Yep.
just got their own bedroom.
Yeah, right. I know what we'll do. Throw up a couple walls. Bye, kids. No more den.
Yeah, exactly. So we made it work. But
We
it
did.
could have been our forever home.
You totally could
And
have.
there was so much value to that.
Yeah.
But your mom and I had this internal list of here's all the things we wish we had done.
Yeah.
And then as our family grew older, she's like, my dream would be to have my adult children be able to all come stay with me and be under one same roof for holidays or family day. Or so she designed out what her dream home was when we moved. So when I say, can you believe we've literally doubled our equity
Wow.
in 5 years?
That's awesome.
And I'm like, as a financial guy,
Yeah.
we have this RV that's paid for. It's like maybe $300, $400 a month to rent a campsite.
Wow, really?
We could take that equity, cash out,
Yeah.
and live in an RV that's maybe like 800 square feet.
Okay, but like for what purpose? For
To eventually wait for interest rates to come back down and housing prices to come down. And then we could take that doubled equity and have a lower mortgage payment.
Oh, but like you wouldn't have mom's dream home then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So financially, the dollars and cents, the hard numbers, as a money guy, I'm like, this makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
But the utility factor for your mom and me, by the way, like I love our house.
Yeah.
Like it's like a vacation to me every time I go home.
It's like a vacation every time I can visit.
Until I have to do yard work and work on
yeah.
the house
Yeah.
and things like that.
That's why I got
Especially
two
when Toby
18-year-olds.
moves out.
Oh, that's going to be rough. Yeah.
Because he's my landscaper.
He is your landscaper.
By the way, we're having a shed finally put in. And he's like,
I know, yeah.
oh, me and Dad's shed is being installed.
I love that. That's hilarious.
Or they cut down trees. He's like, oh, good. I need some more yard work to do. I need some money. But anyways, side note. The utility that your mom has, the value to her
Yeah.
is more than doubling our equity.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So this brings me back to maybe on the outline, when should you move? And what we've
Yes.
advised you and Dustin.
Yep.
Yes, interest rates are higher. Yes, you're going to pay a lot more than you think is reasonable for a house.
Yep.
But the value, the utility to you and Dustin and the memories of your children
Yeah.
goes way above dollars and cents.
Yeah, for sure.
The utility to Dustin of enjoying fall
Exactly.
and being like, wow, this is pretty. Not
so pretty.
where am I going to put all these leaves?
I know. It is a
like
joke. Like
designing
he
a
gets so
strategy
stressed.
of if
He
I blow
is.
all the leaves here and then
Yep.
I mow them over and then I burn them and like
I wish that was an exaggeration. It's just so
he
legit.
has
I
like
know.
diagrams. He probably wakes up at night. He's like, what if?
Probably.
So the utility to him would be worth paying 7% interest instead of 3%.
Yeah.
Of extending your mortgage now another 30 years again when you've just paid off 5 years of it.
Right.
Like that's the advice. The number one piece of advice is don't always look at dollars and cents.
Yeah.
Look at, is this a home that we're going to hopefully be our forever home
Mm-hmm.
and make our memories for our family there?
Yeah.
That should be the number one driver. If you've done what we talked about in episodes 1 through 7 and gotten your finances in order.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Nice.
So
That all works.
So that was our conclusion, probably. So I don't know if in post, Courtney, if you want to like chop it or not.
Yeah, Courtney,
We'll
chop it
come
up.
back to she's shaking her head
She's totally saying no. She's like, guys, enough with the post. To finish up our intro,
no. Okay.
how many minutes are we into this thing? Like half an hour or something?
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
We got 25 more minutes.
We're crushing it, guys.
Yeah.
The last term that I want to know before we move on to whatever's next,
Yeah.
is escrow.
Okay, cool.
Because the way Justin would just be like,
oh, escrow.
yes, the escrow. And I'm like, oh, yes, the escrow.
Yep.
What is this?
There's two parts of it, two different things of escrow. Escrow is basically just a legal account that's held on behalf of something designed to pay something.
Say that again.
It's an account that's legally set up to hold money designed to pay something specifically.
How is that different from any other bank account?
Well, because you don't control it.
Oh.
And somebody else doesn't control it. It's like an independent account designed for a specific purpose.
Who controls it?
The escrow company.
There's a whole
which
company?
is a legit thing. There are
For real?
escrow companies. So there's two ways this comes up with housing. The first one is important, but not important to understand. But it will come up when it'll come up when you're buying a house. Is you'll see line items on your mortgage, no, whatever they call, like, this is all your costs.
Oh, okay.
It'll be like, well, you pay this to escrow. So
Dustin's
basically,
probably seen that before.
So yeah, Dustin's seen it. Basically, you're buying a house from somebody else.
Yes.
There's realtors, there's banks,
Yes.
there's all this. The escrow company will take the money and make sure it goes to the right people.
Oh.
So that it can't be stolen from somebody.
Oh.
So that's
makes
a
sense.
one-time thing per purchase.
Oh, okay.
And then when you go to sell it, it would happen again.
So they're really just in the business of buying and selling.
They're the middleman. Like that's
They're
what an
just-
escrow company does.
That's just their job.
Yep. Is protect everybody in that transaction. So money's not stolen.
I love that. Okay.
But where it comes up probably in your guys' discussion.
I was going to say, I was like, I don't understand why that was coming up then.
Yeah. What's really cool about a mortgage, but something you have to factor in when we do get to number 2 or 3 on our list, if we get there today.
We already did point 4, so we'll get there.
Yeah. This might be housing part 1.
It might be.
But when we get there, on your mortgage, okay, let me backtrack. We talked about one of the episodes, like expected costs.
Yes.
And we talked about, like, thankfully now most car insurance is paid every month.
Okay.
But when your mom and I were first becoming adults, it was like every 6 months. There was no month to month.
Really?
So if you didn't plan, you'd get that bill and be like,
stressful.
could you imagine 6 months of car insurance coming due, like right away?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to prepare for that. That's crazy. Okay.
And so keep that in mind. And then also keep in mind, you might have heard Dustin complain about this, car taxes.
Oh, he's so spicy about car taxes. He's so spicy about it.
It's,
He's like, oh, yes, more taxes.
Yeah.
He's turning into Ron Swanson
He
like
basically
every
is.
day.
But it was funny because in Arizona, when you paid your annual, like to get your sticker to say, okay, now I'm 2025 or now I'm 2026, it was always a big cost.
Yeah, it was.
But you paid the state of Arizona and that got you your sticker.
Right.
And so when we all moved here, we were like, wow, taxes are so cheap in
So
Virginia.
cheap
I don't know what
here.
people are talking about because we paid I think we did like the 3 or 5 year plan for
think you did.
Virginia.
Yeah.
And so we got this long sticker oh, we're not going to have to worry about this for 5 years.
Forever.
And it was less than 1 year of taxes in Arizona. We're like, we are hitting pay dirt.
Yep.
Well, then January rolls around and as Dustin calls them,
What is it? King James City County?
James City County.
King James City
Not
County.
just James City County. Which I laugh. There's like King William and Prince William.
There
like
are
in
actual,
Virginia. Like I thought we broke away from these people, but
it's probably
anyways.
for the historic.
Yeah.
You know.
But each county in Virginia collects property taxes on things you own, like your car
Yeah.
and your house.
Yeah.
But on your car, you get this big bill and you're like, excuse me, what?
Yeah, that was nuts. I remember their first year.
And you had no idea it was coming.
Yep.
Because in Arizona, yes, you paid a lot to the state,
Uh-huh.
but the state collected county taxes
For
as
the-
well.
Yeah.
And then
for
they
the county.
paid the county. Well, in Virginia, you pay the state for your sticker,
Mhm.
and then the county says, "Oh, by the way, you owe us 5 times what you paid the state in taxes."
Oh, how rough was that for you guys getting the 5-year thing? Was
Yeah.
your taxes thing like
It
just
was
bananas?
like we thought, "What is this?" We had to like ask people, like, "Is this a thing?" And we were in
Am I
James
being
City
scammed
County.
by the whole?
Yeah, thankfully we're now in a different county with a lower
Yeah.
tax rate, but it's still
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, yeah.
And by the way, these taxes go to pay for roads and schools and parks and
Ugh,
like police.
good
and,
things.
Like it does pay for things, but
yeah.
it's not planned. So now your house has property taxes owed to the county.
Okay.
So you imagine a car's worth, say, 30,000.
Let's say that. Yes.
Your house is worth 300,000.
More.
So whatever that number you got from the county, take that times 10.
Mm-hmm.
That would come due in January. And the bank knows. Corinne and Dustin probably didn't save this every month.
Harsh.
They didn't
Harsh.
watch Money Talks with Dad. So what the bank does for your taxes and insurance is it says, this is what we estimate you're going to owe next year when that bill comes due.
They can tell you. They'll tell you how much to
They'll
estimate.
guesstimate.
Nice.
And then every month you're going to pay money into escrow
Yes. Them.
for taxes and insurance. And then when the bill comes due, rather than going to your house,
Yeah.
it's going to go to the escrow company.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And they're going to say, here you go,
Yep.
James City County.
Yeah.
Here you go, insurance company.
Okay.
And then if the number is higher, you're going to get a notice that says, by the way, your escrow balance went too low. So your mortgage is going to go up by $10 or $15 or $20 to catch you back up.
Okay.
Sometimes, and
That
this
makes
has
sense.
happened, your taxes and insurance were actually lower than what they collected, and you'll actually get a check for $100 or $200 from escrow.
Is this different from like tax time? Do you know what I'm
Yes.
talking about?
Completely different from tax.
Oh,
time.
sure. Why wouldn't it be? Okay,
That will
cool.
be episode. No promises.
No promises. Okay. But so that's what it was making me think of. Is
Yeah.
like, because when you said they'll tell you how much, I'm like, isn't that the whole problem with tax season? Is that like it's a big guessing game or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's
but
not.
we
Your
don't have to talk
property
about that.
taxes are kind of predictable because
Okay.
there's rules on how much they can increase it.
Oh.
And your escrow company will be notified, like, oh, by the way, taxes are going up this year. You should collect more.
Okay.
But it prevents you from having to come up with a lot of money once a year or twice a
away.
year to pay taxes and insurance. So that's
Okay.
in a mortgage, escrow is a very big important thing.
Okay.
But a lot of times when you get pre-qualified, they will say, well, this is what your mortgage payment is.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be careful to make sure that they're also including taxes and insurance or your escrow payment,
Okay.
because that might be $200, $300, $400 a month extra on top of the
Wow.
mortgage.
Why would they not? Like, why do I have to make sure they
Some
are?
calculators just don't have it. Like
Oh, bummer.
a good bank would tell you,
Yeah.
or a good realtor would say, by the way, add $400 for escrow.
Yeah.
That's what they mean, taxes and insurance.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, we finished all of the vocab words.
All right, so we're done with the intro.
We're done with the intro.
It says
move
3
forward.
to 5 minutes intro on my outline.
That is, I think, ish.
Ish.
It was roughly 3 to 5 minutes.
How much time do we have, Courtney? We spent
We spent
35 minutes.
35 minutes. That's what it
35 minutes.
says. Guys, we're
Just note
fully
that. All
on
right.
track. All
So
right.
in the next 25 minutes,
We're going to speed talk. Let's talk true costs of home ownership
okay.
next. Okay.
Cool.
So there are like there's the down payment. I remember that was like a whole thing.
Mhm.
Okay. Cause like Dustin was like, okay, listen. I was like, we just buy the house. Like that's just
Yeah.
what we do. Right. And he's like, well, we have to save up money to do the down payment. And I'm like, no, love.
You
We
mean
just-
like a first and last month's rent?
yeah, I was like exactly, literally, right? Because I'm like, I've only ever rented. I swear, you wouldn't think I actually was raised by you. The way Dustin just probably assumed. Or
He probably got into this
He was
thinking,
like, nice.
I'm going to marry somebody financially
she's
literate.
gonna be so literate. And I was like, oh, you silly boy. Anyway, so yeah, so he was like, well, we have to save up more money for the down payment. We want to have a bigger down payment. And I was like, no, girl, we don't
Like,
want a bigger down
we
payment.
can afford this. This is less than our rent.
Yeah, I was like,
Let's go.
I said, I'm ready to go. So then he was like, no, we want to have a bigger down payment, then it's less every month. And I was like,
Which is probably a vocab word we should have added
oh yeah, probably.
because he probably said it and it just went.
Yep. Fully.
So there's a thing called PMI.
Okay, it did it again. What?
Yep. Principal mortgage insurance.
Okay.
Basically the bank. So remember we talked about equity.
I remember.
All right. So $400,000 house. If you put down $40,000, which is 10%,
10%.
your equity would be $40,000.
Okay.
The bank knows that prices fluctuate.
Mm-hmm.
If you get into trouble and that house drops by more than $40,000, the bank's going to lose money if they have to foreclose and take your house back.
Okay.
So say
They don't like that.
you both lost your income
Nuts. Yeah, that's rough.
and you couldn't pay the mortgage, they have to come take it. So what the bank does is if you don't have at least 20% equity, so on that $400,000 house would be $80,000 down
Yeah.
payment,
Uh-huh.
they're going to charge PMI, principal mortgage insurance.
Okay.
It's protecting the bank. It's extra money you pay so that the bank gets an insurance policy to say, basically, if Corinne and Dustin can't pay their mortgage, we have this insurance policy. So you guys pay extra on your mortgage. So we said you have your
Okay.
mortgage payment,
Yeah.
you have your escrow costs, you would have PMI, which could be a 3 to 5% extra payment, which could be $300 or $400
Dang.
per month.
Dang.
So what Dustin was saying is we need to try to come up with 20% so we
Yeah.
don't pay PMI.
Oh, okay. Does it have to be 20%? Is that the rule for it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Jeez Louise.
Unless
Man, why are there so many exceptions?
this might be 0.4. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
We'll maybe come back. If you are a first-time home buyer, there are FHA loans, and if you're a veteran, there's VA loans.
Yes, those are sweet.
Those allow you to apply. They're harder to get mortgages. It's a lot more hoops to jump through because of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
But you would not have to come up with the full 20% and you wouldn't have to pay PMI.
So we did the first homeowners
Yes.
thing.
So you might have had some additional costs, but you didn't have to come up with the full PMI amount every month.
I see.
Because FHA, which
I don't
is
know
a
what those
government
letters are.
administration, they kind of step in and they say, hey, as the government, we're going to help back this loan because we want people to buy houses.
Oh, okay.
We
So
don't like that it's 38 for the first
That's what I
time
was
home
going to ask
buyer.
you. Okay. Yeah.
So that is available for first-time home buyers and veterans.
Yeah.
FHA or VA loans, you might hear that. That wasn't in our vocabulary, but that's something important.
What does FHA stand for?
Federal Housing Administration.
That was totally my guess.
Hopefully, as this posting, it's still a thing.
Why
That
would
was-
it be a thing?
That was apolitical. Cut that in post.
Cut it in post, Courtney.
Courtney says no.
She said no.
It is a government department,
Oh.
and I am apolitical. I'm an independent,
Yeah,
and I think both sides have good points sometimes.
for sure.
It is a-
Canceled. No.
yeah. The general purpose of the FHA
Uh-huh.
is to help people get homes and buy a house for the first time.
Okay.
Is there waste? Probably.
Why?
It's the government bureaucracy.
Okay.
Like government has layers and layers and layers of people
Yeah.
just trying to do one mission.
Yeah.
Maybe
Sounds
it's
like
necessary.
too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But their purpose is to
Uh-huh.
help people buy a house to get the economy going, because when somebody buys a house, they spend a lot of money
Right.
and they become a more stable citizen, if you will,
Yeah.
because they're less likely to move. They
Right.
start getting involved in schools,
Yeah.
the community.
All that.
So the government wants you to buy a house, and that's what FHA is there, and the Veterans Administration to help veterans, as we should,
Yeah.
get into a house, whether they're still in the military or they're retired,
Yeah.
to start forming equity and
Yep.
and getting ahead.
Having a stable life.
Yeah.
So this is we're totally off topic now, but I'm like, but so for what? Who doesn't want the FHA to be a thing? Not like who personally. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just like what is the downside to it? What do some people think the downside is to having the FHA?
The waste inside the department. Like
Explain
I
what.
mentioned, the hoops you have to jump through are ridiculous.
Okay.
But it's because people take advantage of it and maybe try to be like, hey, I know I'm giving you money for this house, but I already bought a house, so you get a house. Like, there's just a lot of waste
Oh.
in every government department,
Sure.
probably.
Yeah.
And so the thought of the current administration is we should become more efficient. So every government agency is kind of on the chopping block of maybe we should get rid of some of the bureaucracy.
Oh.
And
But if
again,
we don't have that, wouldn't that be like, am I wrong? I've learned about this 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So am I wrong in my vast understanding that the pros outweigh the cons in having this
the purpose, I
association?
should say, the purpose of the FHA,
Uh-huh.
and I don't even know if they're on the chopping block, but it seems like every government department should.
Are you getting me
Is-
concerned for no reason, Dad? Are they totally fine? Because now I'm
I
like,
don't know.
I'm worried for all the first
I
time
can't
homeowners.
keep up.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Dad, just know everything, please.
Yeah. I'm not going to go where
No,
I was
it's
going
okay.
to go
Please
because
don't.
that would get us even more off topic.
Don't get us more off topic.
Actually,
That's promising.
this will probably air before, but I was asked by our advisors, which is my day job and what
Yeah.
I'm paid to do
Yeah.
a 90-second video that we need to record after this,
Sweet.
talking about those cuts.
Oh, fun.
So that should have already aired. Maybe Courtney,
Check it out.
when she posts this video,
Courtney, tag
can
it.
tag that video. Anyways,
She
Courtney's
loves
like,
when we talk about it
Courtney's
during
like,
the
I was
podcast.
supposed to go home 30 minutes ago.
All right.
Anyways, we have, I think, a good thing. We need to cut our government's deficit. They need to watch Money Talks with Dad and figure out a way to cut cost. And the idea was we should look at all government agencies and figure out ways to cut cost. What I'm saying
Yeah.
is the general purpose of each department when Congress created them,
Yeah.
the VA, Veterans Administration, the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, was to help Americans prosper and get ahead.
Yeah. Which is
So-
a good goal.
Right. And the goal should be make this as efficient as possible and cost
Yeah.
the taxpayers as little as possible.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we have people out there and you're getting involved with your political people to say, let's help Americans get ahead as
Yeah.
efficiently as possible.
Absolutely.
That's apolitical.
That
I
is
feel
very,
like.
I feel like it's apolitical.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very just
So-
like, we want the best for our
Yep.
people.
As far as I know, FHA loans are still going to be around. Veterans
Hopefully.
VA loans are still going to be around.
I couldn't imagine that happens, like that those two associations get cut and there's not like an uprising.
Right.
Or like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that would
Yeah.
be problematic.
So I think
So,
totally get how much time we got now, Courtney?
how we doing?
Okay.
So we are killing it.
We are going to be doing housing part 2.
We're definitely going to have to do a
apparently.
housing part 2. The next thing I want to make sure we can talk about today is,
Wait. Down payment.
oh yeah, down payment is where we were.
If you don't do 20% and you're not a first-time home buyer FHA
Yeah.
or a veterans VA loan,
Yeah.
you will pay extra in PMI.
Bummer.
As you get your equity though, you can go back to your bank. And I think Dustin
That's what I was going to ask.
did this
Yeah.
for you guys.
I think so.
Hey, now our equity is higher.
Yeah.
Can we get rid of PMI?
But we did the first time homeowners thing.
Right, but I think you still had some sort of charge that was on there.
Oh, bummer.
Or maybe when you refinanced, you got rid of it.
Dad, I don't know.
But that is the thing. If you don't come up with 20% for your down payment, you will pay more. But don't let
But it's
that
not forever.
discourage you. It's not forever.
Okay.
As the value, and this is why I always say, if this is your forever home or you're going to be there a really long time,
Yeah.
it's probably worth paying the PMI if you can't come up with 10%. Because a lot of banks will say, we're okay with you doing 5%.
Nice. Yeah.
Because we want to loan you money and we want
Yeah.
you to buy a house.
Please buy a house.
Yes,
Yeah.
you'll pay a little bit more per month. But if it's a good purchase
Yeah.
and it's less than rent, then you should buy it.
Yeah.
So,
That's perfect segue.
okay.
Are you
cool.
finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Is when now, assuming people are following along and they've watched our other episodes and they are using the tools that we've got
Mm-hmm.
on all of our websites and everything. I say our websites.
You're an employee.
I am technically an employee. And like their budget monthly, like they're doing good. They're good on debt. They're good on managing their money every month. When do you know whether or not you should own a house or rent a a townhome, an apartment, rent a house.
Mhm.
Own versus rent, basically,
Yeah.
is what I want to get into. Because I will say this, since Dustin and I have been talking about selling this house and buying a new one, it's even come up of like, maybe we rent for a little while until we find a good house. And like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So rent versus own. What are your thoughts and opinions? Not advice. I almost said advice, but this is not financial advice.
That's right. I think we were supposed to say that at some point.
I think that's supposed to be our disclaimer. So I threw it in at minute 47.
Okay,
basically.
So my rule of thumb
Yeah.
is because of the upfront costs of buying
Yeah.
and the back end costs of selling, which could be 2 or 3%.
Okay.
And because on average, a house only goes up 3 to 5% per year, not the 50% over 3 years that we've seen.
Right.
If you're not going to be there for 3 to 5 years, you should just keep renting.
Really.
But if you can find a house that you say, we're going to be here at least 5 years, preferably 10 or 15 or 20,
Yeah.
it's better if rent's even a little bit cheaper and your mortgage, though, might be $200 or $300 more.
Yeah.
The equity you'll be building is one thing financially.
Yeah.
But what you and I talked about, knowing you personally, you need comforts and stability
Yeah.
that you can change around and rearrange the living room
Love doing that.
10 times a year.
Yep.
But it's your house.
Yeah.
You know every morning it's going to look like this.
Yeah.
And you know it's yours.
Yeah.
And you could do whatever you want to. If you want to paint the wall green, you can paint the wall green and not have to get permission.
Yeah.
If you want to pound holes in the wall, and it's yours.
Yeah.
So that, going back to what we said, utility, the value you and Dustin and the kids would get is really good.
Mm-hmm.
You should look to purchase, even though mortgage rates are higher,
Yeah.
even though houses cost more. Renting, one, makes you unstable.
Right.
Because we've seen this around here. I've heard stories of people, they were renting a house they loved.
Yeah.
The landlord said, holy cow, look at my equity. I'm tired of
Yeah.
being a landlord.
Yeah.
I'm going to sell it.
Right.
You have 2 months to move out and find a new home.
Yeah, that's got to be a huge stressor. Just to even just have that like looming anxiety that could happen at any time.
Yeah. And so the more housing prices go up, the more likely that is to happen, where the landlord just says,
Oh.
I'm out. We did
Yeah.
that in Tucson. We're like, dude, look at the prices. We've been
Right.
renting our house. Let's just sell it and be done being,
Yeah.
doing all the stuff that takes to be a landlord
Right.
and be done.
Yeah.
So that's a risk you take. You're saying, oh, I'm going to wait for prices to go down. Well, if they keep going up, your landlord could be like, nope, you're out.
You're out. And then what?
And then
you're
like what
stuck
happened to these
figuring
other
it out.
people,
Yeah.
like the one we know very closely,
Yeah.
they had to move school districts because there was nothing in our school district.
Yeah.
Try to do open enrollment, paying a ridiculously high price of rent in a
Yeah.
much lower neighborhood
Oh.
and not getting any equity in anything.
Yeah. Not even the emotional equity.
Yeah, exactly. So own versus rent, if it's 3 to 5 years for sure staying, preferably 5 or longer,
Yeah.
within your budget,
Mm-hmm.
where it's not going to hurt you financially, where you're not going to be like, oh, rice and beans and rice for 5 years.
Triggered.
Then you should look at owning, regardless of, I think prices are too high, or I think mortgage rates are too high.
Right.
Because over the long term, if this doesn't tell us something alone, going back to our intro, and then we'll probably want to wrap this up. And
Now that we've finished up our full intro,
Yeah.
let's wrap it up. All right. We lost video. We fixed it. Thank you, Dustin and Courtney.
yes.
Dad, you were saying about the intro.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to intro, we were
Yeah.
talking about, should you own versus rent?
Yeah.
And numbers wise, you're always saying, oh, I'm going to wait for prices to come down.
Yeah.
And yes, I think that too. I would sell our house,
Yep.
our double equity, live in an RV, wait for prices to come down, make money,
Yep.
forgetting utility.
Right.
But the thing you think about, like big picture, putting things in perspective,
Mm-hmm.
housing bubble, literally what it sounds like. Our house went from $203,000, we're $325,000.
Yeah.
At the very, very top, the median home price was $257,000 in 2007.
Right.
Yes, it dropped a lot, but at 2020, before COVID,
Oh, okay.
the median price went from 257 all the way back up to 329.
Wow.
Today, it is what we say 419,000.
Which is insane.
So
Insane.
at the peak of the bubble, 257.
Yeah.
Now rounding to 420.
Yeah. That's wild. So are we in another bubble?
Maybe. I mean,
Heard it here first, folks. No, I'm just kidding.
like housing prices are getting out of control.
Okay. They are getting out of control, is what you're saying?
They are like, I mean,
I'm like,
you've
I think
seen it.
so, but I don't know what's
Like you
what's
guys
in
are having to
control.
push your budget up
It's
way
insane.
high.
Yeah, it is.
And Dustin is, whether he's listened to our podcast or not,
This guy. He does.
he's one of his 75 podcasts he listens to.
He's a podcast boy.
He's a millennial podcast
He
guy.
really is.
Anyways, he's saying if it's our forever home, we can push our budget up to this number.
Right.
But if it's not, if it's maybe a 5 or 10 year home, we can
Yeah.
only do this.
Yep.
And then you look around and you're like, well, we have to live like 50 miles away in the middle of nowhere to afford that,
Yeah.
which is a choice people are making.
It is. Yeah. Right.
And one reason where we live has become so expensive is because people from Richmond are saying, well, it's too
Yeah.
expensive here. Let's live here. It's 40 minutes out, but
Yep.
at least we can afford a
But
house.
at least we can afford it. Yeah, exactly.
And so going back to if it's your 10-year or longer forever home,
Yeah.
remember, it went from 257, I think it dropped to around 200 after the bubble burst during the financial crisis.
Right.
And then it's back up to 420. So if you
Crazy,
stuck
crazy.
around, you made money still in your house.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's important. If it's your forever home and you're going to be there a long time, don't worry about prices. If the mortgage makes sense in your budget, don't wait for prices to drop.
Okay.
And I don't think
Because you can always refinance.
Yeah, you can refinance. If prices go down, yeah, that stinks, but you're still better off than renting.
Definitely.
Because if prices keep going up, your landlord is probably going to say, this is too good of an offer for me to keep renting.
Right.
I'm going to sell it. Good luck finding a place to live.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't wait if it makes financial sense. And I'm not saying we're in the financial crisis type bubble, but something has to give price-wise. Like,
I would think.
you're
yeah.
going to get to the point where nobody can afford the houses. And then remember going back to inflation and interest rates, episode
Yes.
7.
Yeah.
Supply and demand works in housing.
That's right. Oh, okay. Yeah. It does work in housing too.
So if the price gets too high where nobody can afford it,
Mm-hmm.
the price is going to have to come back lower.
Right.
But don't wait for that. I don't think it's going to crash down. It might come down a little bit.
Right.
And we've actually seen it come down a little bit so far in 2025
Nice.
from the peak.
Okay.
But don't wait.
Okay.
I think we kind of end it there. We have a
Yeah.
whole, we literally didn't even get to segment 1. We got through the first bullet
But we
point.
did hit segment 4 earlier. And
Yeah. So we're going to
It's
do
all right.
housing part 2
We're
for
gonna do
episode 9.
9. Yeah.
But what did we talk about? Main points today.
Main points today, I think, was we went over our vocab words, right?
Yep.
Mortgage, equity, interest, HELOC, escrow,
Hmm
PSI. What was
PMI.
that? PMI.
Utility was a
PSI
new
is
one.
Tires.
My favorite economic concept is utility, because
Yes.
that's an economic number that you feel
It's
personally,
a touchy-feely number. Yeah.
which is why I love economics. They're like, we don't know what that number is, but it's different for everybody.
Fun.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Courtney has her list. Grab it.
All right.
Use your long arms. Let's
All
see
right,
what else
here
we
you go.
talked about.
Recap.
Yeah, you can't read that.
I can read very well up close.
That's true.
And this is thanks to Anissa. She says we ramble too much and we need to recap.
And I honestly, thank you, babe, because you're right. We do need to recap. Oh, while I read this, go over our resources that we have available for people.
So we always start with what'smyscore.net is a resource we put out there to help you get your financial lives in order.
Mm-hmm.
I would now start saying going to the SEM YouTube channel and going back through the different episodes, because
Yeah.
we will get to this in part 2.
Yeah.
But like I said, in our conclusion is, if your financial life isn't in order, you shouldn't be buying a house yet.
Yeah.
So go through those steps. Make sure you have all that budgeting stuff in order.
Yep.
We will talk about it in part 2, but if you're wanting to get a guesstimate on what a mortgage costs, bankrate.com is a really good source. We have those resources linked on what'smyscore.net.
Oh, perfect.
Zillow now will have a mortgage estimator. Zillow,
a Zestimate.
Well, they have the
Makes me laugh.
Zestimate.
Oh, that's different.
But they'll also, based on your area, say this is what your mortgage would be.
Oh,
And
I
I
have seen
believe
that.
they include the escrow payments, the principal and interest, in that number. So
Nice.
Zillow's a good thing. I think Redfin competes with them. It's another app you can do to kind of get an idea for prices.
Yeah.
But again, look at the mortgage cost, look at what your down payment might be, kind of get an idea. Can I afford this versus renting?
Yeah. Okay. Those are good resources to have. To go over what we talked about today, we also talked about the true cost of having a home, going over the down payment.
I
and
don't think we
such.
did talk about much true cost.
We talked a little bit about
That'll
true
be
cost,
episode part
cost.
2.
We talked about own versus rent, mortgage.
Own versus rent was a good one.
We did.
We talked about down payment
We talked about down payment
and PMI.
and mortgage payment. No,
Yeah.
that's
But
all
the
of our
true
bullet
cost,
points on
like
true costs.
I have so much more to talk about
Girl, I can't wait to hear about it next time.
in episode 2.
In episode 9,
Oh, right.
part 2.
Part 2 of housing.
And then we talked a little bit about the median housing prices and the house bubble.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
And
it.
I think, understand
Believe it or not,
every
there were
area
more
is different.
stories today, I think, than anything,
That's fine.
which I think people enjoy.
Hopefully. like-
Oh, a great thing I wanted to say is, because we're doing a part 2, if you have questions
Yes.
or
You'll have 4
concerns
weeks to
or
get questions
comments,
in.
send us a message. What's the best way to reach out to us?
We have a
By us,
link
I
in
mean
the comments
Courtney.
to submit. If you want your question to not be public,
Public.
because we have all of our social media, TikTok,
Yeah.
Instagram,
Yeah.
Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, is the full videos.
Yes.
I laugh. People are like, "Oh, I love your videos." I'm like, "Oh, where are you watching them?" "Oh, on TikTok." Or I'm
Love
like,
that.
"Well, you're getting 90 seconds."
We ramble so much more than 90
Yeah,
seconds.
the goal is to click through and watch the full
Watch
video.
the whole thing, girl.
But if you're comfortable,
Yeah.
you can comment on those videos on those platforms.
Yeah. We try.
And we will answer them here, or I've even answered them a lot on TikTok.
Nice. Yeah.
But if you don't want your name read
Yeah.
on the YouTube channel, there's a link to anonymously.
Love that. No, I think you said it right. It was just a little weird inflection.
Yeah, I was trying to think how you say it.
Anonymously.
Yes, that word.
That's how you say
Submit
it.
your question, and we'll answer it on the air.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, on air. That's
Well,
radio. You're old,
I
Dad.
am so old.
That was amazing. We'll answer it live.
We'll take
on
your
air.
calls. 1-800-408-2423. First, a
was-
word from our sponsors.
Oh, jeez. We don't even have. That's a thing, though. That's a thing on
Oh,
sponsors.
shoot.
Today's sponsor is SEM. I'm actually all SEM'd out
You
today.
are.
I've got our jacket. I've got our. Yeah, this is SEM, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm
Or
not.
SEM cup.
I'm Hydrojug.
You're just a good papa today.
Yeah, Hydrojug. Thank you,
Anyway,
Courtney,
we
for
don't
my
have
Christmas
sponsors.
present.
Courtney's the best.
Anyways,
I
I think we end it.
feel like this was a
That
really
is
normal
episode
ending.
8, housing part 1.
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Sutter.